2 weeks before Father's holiday reunion, he phoned me telling not to bring my kids because some niece was bringing her partner. So I sabotaged the whole occasion to demonstrate I'm the actual authority in this family. Be me, 31-year-old Tyler. Need to get this off my chest because this whole situation still keeps me up at night. Fair warning, this is going to be long, but stick with me because it gets wild. Picture this, living what I thought was a pretty solid life in the suburbs. With my wife Jessica, she's an accountant and total keeper. Our 7-year-old son Mason, kid's got more energy than a Monster Energy factory. And my pops Robert, we've got this decent little setup. Nothing fancy, but it's ours. Work as a mechanic, pull in decent money. Life was cruising along smooth until last year when everything went completely sideways. Let me paint you a picture of my family dynamics first. My mom Helen is basically the CEO of Control Freaks Incorporated. Everything has to be perfect according to her standards. Disagreeing with her is like trying to negotiate with a brick wall. My dad Robert, dude's a carpenter, quiet type who keeps his head down. Just rolls with whatever mom decides. Then there's my sister Brianna, 22 years old, 9 years younger than me. Has been the golden child since day one. Oh, and there's my cousin Kevin, 27 years old, who's basically like Mason's uncle. Dude works in tech, has zero filter. Always calls family drama like he sees it. Mason absolutely loves him because Kevin treats him like a little buddy instead of just another kid. When I told Kevin about the family dynamics years ago, his response was classic. So your mom's a control freak, your sister's spoiled rotten, and your dad's been playing dead for 25 years. Sounds like a Netflix series waiting to happen. Here's the thing. Growing up, I never felt bitter about Brianna being the favorite. Kid was 9 years younger. Made sense that she got extra attention. Plus, I genuinely loved having a little sister to look out for. Call me naive, but I thought that protective big brother energy would translate into my parents loving my son the same way. The catalyst for this whole mess started about a week before Mom's retirement party. She calls me up all excited, talking about throwing this big celebration. Friends, relatives, neighbors, the whole 9 yards. I'm thinking this is awesome. Family coming together and all that. Without even thinking twice, I offered to drop $900 to help make it special. Mom got all emotional thanking me, telling me we needed to come early. Everything seemed perfect. Mason was pumped. Kid spent the entire week making this handmade retirement card. Crooked letters and colored pencils saying, "Happy Retirement, Grandma." Little flowers he colored himself. The whole time he's working on it, he's telling Jessica and me we can only give advice. But he's doing everything himself. Watching this 7-year-old pour his heart into making something special for his grandma. Man, that hit me right in the feels. I'm sitting there imagining Mom's face when she sees it. Picturing Mason beaming with pride when she hugs him and tells him how beautiful it is. In my head, this was going to be one of those perfect family moments you remember forever. Then my phone buzzed with a text that changed everything. I'm at work halfway through fixing some brake lines on this Honda Civic, when I see Mom pop up on my screen. Figured it was just party updates or maybe asking if we could bring something. Instead, I read, "Don't come, Brianna's bringing her boyfriend and doesn't want Mason or Jessica there. Too much drama potential, no joke." My hands started shaking. Sat there staring at my phone thinking there had to be some mistake. This couldn't be real. My own mother just told me my 7-year-old son and my wife weren't welcome at her retirement party because my sister didn't want them there. The disrespect was unreal. Not even a phone call or a conversation. Just a cold text dropping this bomb on me. Like I'm some random acquaintance she's uninviting from a barbecue. I called her immediately. Ring, 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 straight to voicemail. Called again, same thing. She was literally dodging my calls after sending that message. That's when I knew this wasn't some misunderstanding or poorly worded text. This was intentional. I immediately called Kevin needing someone to talk me down from doing something stupid. Soon as I told him what happened, he said, "Wait, let me get this straight. Aunt Helen banned a 7-year-old and your wife because Princess Brianna doesn't want them cramping her style. That's not a retirement party. That's a villain origin story." Sitting in my workbase surrounded by the usual garage noise, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about a retirement party anymore. This was about respect, about family, about protecting my son and wife from people who clearly saw them as some kind of inconvenience rather than family. I couldn't focus on work after that text. My kid had been talking about the party all week, asking what kind of cake Grandma would have, whether there would be other kids there. Around lunchtime, I said screw it and told my foreman I needed to take the afternoon off. Family emergency, which wasn't exactly a lie. Drove 35 minutes to my parents' house with my mind racing the entire time. Why would she say something like that? How could a 7-year-old kid and my wife be such a problem that they're banned from their own grandmother's retirement? Before heading over there, I texted Kevin what I was about to do. His response, "Oh, this is going to be good." Helen's about to get a reality check she can't return to customer service. I pulled into their driveway around 2 p.m. Could see Mom through the window just chilling on the couch, watching some daytime TV like she hadn't just nuked our family relationship via text message. The audacity was mind-blowing. Soon as I walked in, she looked annoyed as hell. "Why are you here? Aren't you supposed to be at work?" "I'm busy planning tomorrow." I didn't waste time with small talk. "What exactly did you text me?" She got that defensive look. "You know the one." "I was just letting you know Brianna's bringing her boyfriend over. And we can't have Mason running around being loud or Jessica being what, Mom? Why aren't my wife and son allowed at your retirement party?" The excuse she gave me was straight up insulting. Said Mason was disruptive and Jessica was too opinionated. Might say something that would embarrass the family in front of important guests. This was supposed to be a classy event. She didn't want any incidents. That's when Brianna walked in from the kitchen. I could tell she'd been listening to our conversation. Girl looked at me with this smug expression. Started listing off Mason's supposed crimes. Being too loud, interrupting adult conversations. Spilling apple juice on the white carpet last time we visited. And Jessica always has something to say about everything. Brianna added with this bratty tone. "I don't want my boyfriend thinking our family is trashy. This party is important to me too. This is the same spoiled brat whose college tuition I've been helping pay for the past 2 years. The same sister I'd bought groceries for when she was stressed about money. And she's standing there talking about my wife and son like they're some kind of liability." Later that night, I called Kevin to vent about the whole confrontation. When I told him what Brianna said about Jessica being too opinionated, he lost it. Too opinionated. That's rich coming from someone whose biggest life accomplishment is successfully spending other people's money. What's next? Is she going to complain that water is too wet? "So you think Mason is a bad kid and Jessica is trashy?" I asked her. "Did you forget what you were like when you were his age?" Brianna rolled her eyes and snapped back that this was different. Because it was an important event and she needed to make a good impression. The entitlement in her voice was off the charts. Like she was discussing a business meeting instead of a family celebration. That's when Pops walked in from the garage. Robert might be quiet most of the time, but when he's had enough, dude doesn't mess around. He looked straight at Mom with this disgusted expression. "What the hell is wrong with you people?" he said. His voice harder than I'd ever heard it. "How can you exclude your grandson and daughter-in-law from a family party?" Then he turned to Brianna and started listing off her greatest hits from childhood. The time she threw a tantrum and broke the neighbor's garden gnome when she was 8. The incident where she borrowed Mom's car at 17 without asking and got it towed. How she used to scream and cry whenever she didn't get her way at family gatherings. "But did anyone ever ban you from family events?" he asked. "Did anyone ever call you an embarrassment?" Brianna just stood there with this pouty look, mumbling something about how that was totally different, and not the same thing at all. Dad wasn't done though. He told Mom if she didn't apologize to my family right then and invite us to the party, he wouldn't be attending her retirement. Mom's response, she started screaming about how ungrateful we all were. How she'd worked hard for 30 years and deserved to have her retirement party exactly how she wanted it. If I don't want certain people there causing problems, that's my right. But Dad stayed calm, reminded her that family comes first. He'd spent 25 years watching her play favorites and treat people like accessories for her perfect image. "I'm done enabling this behavior," he said. "You've turned into someone I don't even recognize. I'm watching my parents go at it like this for the first time in my entire life." And it hit me this wasn't just about Mason and Jessica. This was about years of toxic behavior that Dad had been quietly enduring. When I was getting ready to leave, completely done with the whole situation, Dad followed me out to my truck. He leaned in and said something that stuck with me. "You don't have to take this crap anymore. Stand up for your family." That drive home was when I made my decision. I wasn't just going to walk away and let this slide. If Mom and Brianna wanted to treat my family like we were disposable, then they were about to find out exactly how disposable their comfortable lifestyle was, without my financial support. The ride home from my parents' house was intense. I'm gripping the steering wheel, mind racing with everything that just went down. The disrespect, the way Mom acted like excluding my wife and son was just some minor party planning decision. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I'd made a decision that would change everything. See, here's the thing, nobody talks about in these family drama situations. Sometimes being the bigger person just enables toxic behavior. Sometimes you have to show people there are consequences for treating your family like garbage. I walked into the house where Jessica was helping Mason with some homework at the kitchen table. Kid looked up at me with this huge smile, asking if I was excited about Grandma's party tomorrow. Seeing that innocent excitement on his face while knowing what Mom and Brianna had said about him and my wife, that sealed it for me. After Mason went to bed, I sat Jessica down and told her everything. Watched her face change from surprise to hurt to anger as I explained the text, the confrontation, The things Brianna said about both of them. When I got to the part about them calling Mason disruptive and her too opinionated, Jessica's jaw dropped. "They banned both of us," she asked, her voice getting higher. "What the hell did we ever do to them?" "Tomorrow take Mason to that new arcade place," I told her. "Don't mention anything about Grandma's retirement. As for me, I've got plans." She asked what I was planning to do, and I told her straight up, "I'm going to take back what's mine." I called Kevin right after Jessica went to check on Mason. Soon as I explained my plan, he started laughing. "Bro, you're about to repo your own family. That's some next-level petty and I'm here for it. Helen's going to learn that karma doesn't send warning texts." That night, I locked myself in my home office and started making a list. Not just any list, a detailed inventory of every single thing I'd bought for my parents over the past 6 years. I pulled up online receipts, bank transfer confirmations, warranty information, the whole 9 yards. Want to know how much I'd spent on these people who just told me my wife and son weren't welcome in their house? Try $42,000. 42 grand from a middle-class family budget. Started with the big ticket items. $950 Samsung refrigerator when mom's old one died. $680 LG washer, because the old one was embarrassing. $1,650 sectional sofa from Ashley Furniture, because dad complained the old couch was falling apart. Then, there was the 55-inch TCL TV for $1,100, because mom's eyesight wasn't good enough for the smaller screen. I didn't just buy the TV either, paid for professional mounting and all the streaming services. But the real kicker, Brianna's college tuition. 16 grand over 2 years, so she wouldn't have to work part-time and could focus on her studies. Started helping her after she came to our house crying about student loan interest crushing her. I originally offered to loan her the money interest-free, but Jessica convinced me to just gift it to her. Big brother looking out for little sister, right? Plus all the smaller stuff. Dining set, bedroom furniture, kitchen appliances, coffee maker, laptop for Brianna, random living expenses when she was stressed about money. Nearly everything in that house had been paid for with our money, and now they had the nerve to tell me my family wasn't good enough to be there. I found this used furniture pickup service online, one of those places that buys decent stuff and resells it. Called them up, explained I had a house full of furniture I needed moved ASAP, and they were happy to help. Scheduled them for the next morning at 11 a.m., right in the middle of mom's precious retirement party. The plan was simple but effective. Show up during the party with the moving crew and reclaim every single item I'd purchased. Everything had receipts in my name, bank transfers to prove payment. Legally, it was still my property that I'd been letting them use. When I texted Kevin the final details, his response had me cracking up. "This is better than Netflix. You're about to turn Helen's retirement party into an episode of Repo Wars." I'm genuinely disappointed I can't be there to watch Brianna's face when the TV comes down. Was it petty, maybe? Was it justified? Absolutely. I stayed up until 2 a.m. organizing everything. Addresses for the furniture service, copies of receipts, a detailed list of what needed to be removed. This wasn't how I wanted things to go, but they'd forced my hand. Some people might say I should have just walked away, cut quietly, been the bigger person. But here's the thing. Sometimes the bigger person approach just enables toxic people to keep being toxic. As I finally went to sleep, I kept thinking about Mason's retirement card sitting on his dresser, ready to give to a grandmother who just banned him and his mother from her house. Tomorrow she was going to learn exactly what happens when you mess with my family. Morning of mom's retirement. Jessica took Mason to the new arcade like we planned. Kid was excited about the laser tag arena, completely oblivious to the family drama brewing. At exactly 11 a.m., I pulled up to mom's house in a white moving truck, with 2 guys from the furniture pickup service, professional movers, uniformed and everything. The scene was perfect, smooth jazz floating out of the windows, about 35 guests mingling around, total celebration vibes. Walking up to the house, some relatives immediately spotted me and started with the warm greetings. "Tyler, so glad you made it." That's when my mom's sister mentioned how Helen had told everyone my family couldn't come because we had other commitments. The lies just kept stacking up. Not only had she banned us, but she was telling people we'd chosen not to come. Mom came out looking all done up in this floral dress, makeup perfect, playing the gracious retiree role. As soon as she saw me, she whispered, "You came alone, that's good. It'll be more comfortable this way." I looked her dead in the eye and said, "I'm disappointed in you." Watched her smile falter for just a second before she forced it back on for her guests. That's when I made my move. Walked straight into the house, headed for the Bluetooth speaker playing that smooth jazz, and unplugged it. Sudden silence, every conversation stopped, all eyes on me. Then I pointed at the 55-inch TCL TV mounted on the wall and told the movers, "Take that down." The shock in that room was immediate. You could literally feel the energy shift from celebration to confusion to, What the hell is happening? Mom rushed over, her voice getting shrill. Tyler, what do you think you're doing? This is my retirement party? I'm taking back what's mine, I told her, staying calm. What do you mean yours? That's my TV. Everything has receipts in my name along with bank transfers. It's mine. That shut her up real quick. Brianna and her boyfriend, let's call him Connor, came running in when they heard the commotion. Brianna saw the movers carefully removing the TV and completely lost her mind. Started screaming at me to stop, trying to get between me and the movers. You can't do this. This is Mom's special day. Step aside, Brianna, I told her. No, you're ruining everything. Do you want me to call the police? Let them verify who owns this stuff. Brianna's face went white. She knew I had her dead to rights. Connor was standing there looking confused as hell, probably wondering what kind of family he'd gotten involved with. Later, when I told Kevin about Connor's expression during all this, he said, "Poor guy thought he was meeting the in-laws, not auditioning for Jerry Springer. Bet he's updating his dating profile as we speak. Must have normal family non-negotiable." While this is going down, guests are standing around looking uncomfortable as hell. Some are whispering, a few look ready to bolt. But I'm focused on the mission. When the TV was loaded, I pointed the movers toward the kitchen. Next is the Samsung fridge. That's when Aunt Eleanor, Mom's sister, stepped in trying to play peacemaker. Asked me to calm down and explain what was happening. Before I could answer, Mom jumped in with her victim narrative. How she'd made a reasonable request about the guest list, and now I was being vindictive. But Aunt Eleanor wasn't buying it. She told Mom to stop talking and let me explain. So I laid it all out, told the entire room about the text message, how Mom had banned my 7-year-old son and my wife from the party because Brianna didn't want them there. Explained how they said Mason was too disruptive and Jessica was too opinionated and would embarrass the family. The silence that followed was deafening. I pulled out my phone and showed them the actual text. Watched faces change as they read Mom's cold words. The warmth these people had for her started evaporating in real time. Uncle Richard, Dad's brother, spoke up first. "Helen, how could you do something like that? Mason is just a kid, and Jessica's part of this family." Then Janet, Mom's longtime co-worker, shook her head in disappointment. "I can't believe you'd exclude your own daughter-in-law and grandson from your retirement party." When someone asked Brianna directly how she could feel okay about banning a child and his mother, she started with the defensive excuses. Afraid Mason might be disruptive, didn't want Jessica's comments making Connor uncomfortable, needed everything to be perfect. I cut her off and asked the room point blank, "Would any of you feel embarrassed if Mason was loud, or if Jessica had opinions about things?" Every single person said no. Helen, one of Mom's neighbors, even added that she'd been looking forward to seeing Mason today. That kids bring joy to celebrations. The atmosphere completely flipped. What started as confusion turned into sympathy and support for what I was doing. Guests began looking at Mom and Brianna like they were seeing them for the first time. George from down the street shook his head and told his wife they should leave. This isn't a celebration anymore. It's just sad. One by one, people started making their exits. Polite goodbyes to me, many offering words of support for my family. The elegant retirement party Mom had planned was turning into a public humiliation. But the real shock came when Connor stepped over to Brianna with this serious look on his face. "Brianna, this whole situation makes me uncomfortable. The way you talk about a child and his mother, I have nephews and I'd never want someone treating them like this. Dude's a good guy." Could see right through Brianna's entitled attitude. She tried to explain, begging him to understand her perspective. But he was done. "I think we're at different places when it comes to family values," gave me a respectful nod and walked straight out. Within 15 minutes, that room of 35 guests had cleared out to just a handful. The few remaining people were gathering their things ready to bounce. Before leaving, Mrs. Margaret told Mom she was disappointed in her choices. That family should come first. Just like that, the house was empty except for Mom, Brianna, the movers and me, untouched party tables, decorations, and the echo of a celebration that never actually happened. Time to finish what I started. With all the guests gone, I told the movers to keep going. Take everything on the list. That's when Dad emerged from the bedroom where he'd been hiding during the whole confrontation. Dude had stayed inside the entire time, probably knowing exactly what was about to go down. Mom immediately started blaming him, screaming about how he could just stand there and let me steal everything. Dad's response was ice cold. "He bought those things. He has every right to take them. I told you this would happen if you kept treating his family like dirt." For the next hour and a half, I watched these professional movers systematically dismantle everything I'd paid for. The Samsung fridge got wheeled out first. Then the sectional sofa, the LG washer, microwave, coffee maker. Piece by piece, that house emptied out. Mom and Brianna just stood there the whole time, helpless. Brianna kept crying and asking how I could do this to Mom, while Mom alternated between rage and this pathetic victim act. They didn't dare try to stop it because they knew I had them legally. Every receipt, every bank transfer, every warranty was in my name. When I texted Kevin updates throughout the process, his responses kept me laughing. So they went from retirement party to estate sale in 2 hours. That's got to be some kind of record. Helen Speed ran her way to karma. When everything was loaded, the moving company manager transferred $4,300 to my account, their payment for the used furniture. Here I was getting paid to reclaim my own property from family members who just disrespected my wife and son. As the truck pulled away, I turned back for one last look at the house. It stood there hollow and empty, just bare walls and the few worn-out items I hadn't purchased. Mom was sitting on the front steps looking completely shell-shocked, while Brianna was by the door crying into her phone, probably trying to get Connor to come back. But I wasn't done yet. Reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out Mason's card, the one he'd spent a week making with those crooked colored pencil letters and carefully colored flowers. Walked over to Mom and held it out. "This is the gift Mason made for you." For a second, I thought maybe seeing that innocent handmade card would snap her out of it, make her realize how wrong it was to exclude him and Jessica. Maybe she'd finally understand what she'd thrown away. Instead, she stood up, snatched the card from my hand, and tore it to shreds right in front of me. "Your brat and that mouthy wife of yours ruined my retirement," she screamed. "This is all their fault." Brianna joined in. "Yeah, because of you. Connor broke up with me. I hope you're happy." Watching that card get destroyed, the one my 7-year-old son made with so much love and care, sent this sharp pain through my chest. But I didn't yell back, didn't lose my temper. Instead, I calmly bent down and started picking up the torn pieces. Each scrap represented hours of his time, his excitement, his love for a grandmother who just literally destroyed his gift in front of his father. I gathered every piece and put them in my pocket. When I stood up and looked at my mother, everything became clear. This woman hadn't just rejected her grandson's love. She'd cruelly destroyed it right before my eyes. "You're a pathetic excuse for a mother and grandmother," I said, looking her straight in the eye. For a moment, everything went still. Mom and Brianna both froze, unable to respond to words that probably hit harder than anything I could have taken from their house. I turned and walked to my truck without looking back. Just as I was about to get in, I heard Dad's voice behind me. "Wait, I'm coming with you." Turned around to see him walking out with 2 suitcases and a manila envelope in his hand. He'd been preparing for this moment probably longer than I realized. When Mom saw her husband heading for the gate, she jumped up screaming, "Robert, you can't just leave me." Then he dropped the bomb no one was expecting. He paused and pulled out the manila envelope. "Helen, you're being served with divorce papers. My lawyer will be in touch." Her face went white as he handed her the papers. 30 years of marriage, and this is how you treat our family. I'm done." He kept walking toward my truck. At the gate, he turned back one final time. "You and Brianna deserve each other. Maybe now you can both learn what it's like to actually work for what you have." His words left both of them speechless. Brianna's mouth was hanging open like she couldn't believe what was happening. When Dad reached the truck, he looked at me and asked, "You have space for your old man?" My throat tightened with emotion. I told him he could stay with me for the rest of his life. In that moment, everything shifted. I wasn't alone in this. I had my father, the one person in my family who truly understood what family should mean. When I called Kevin later to tell him what happened, he said, "Robert served her divorce papers at her own retirement party. Your dad just went from 0 to savage in 3.5 seconds. That's some final boss energy right there." That afternoon, when Jessica and Mason got back from the arcade, seeing me standing there with Dad and his 2 suitcases, Jessica was surprised but didn't ask questions, just headed into the kitchen to start dinner like always. That's one of the things I love about her. She reads situations and rolls with them. Mason, on the other hand, ran straight into Grandpa's arms, beaming with joy. Kid was excited to see him, asking with those curious 7-year-old eyes, "Grandpa, where's Grandma? Why did you bring bags?" Dad handled it perfectly. "Grandma and I decided I should stay here for a while. How does that sound?" Mason nodded enthusiastically and launched into stories about the arcade, the laser tag, the claw machines, how he beat some older kid at air hockey. After Mason went to bed that night, Dad asked me for the pieces of the torn card. Watched him sit at our kitchen table, patiently putting it back together, like he was restoring something priceless. When Jessica came out and saw what he was working on, she got emotional, thinking about how our son had spent a week making that card only to have it destroyed so heartlessly. Later that night, the 3 of us sat around the table, and I told Jessica everything from start to finish. After listening quietly, she looked at me and said, "I'm proud of you for standing up for us. That took guts." Then she turned to Dad. "Robert, you're welcome here as long as you want. This is your home too." That's when it hit me. This right here, with people who genuinely love and respect each other, this is my real family. The next few weeks, Dad slipped into our household rhythm like he'd always been there. He took over dropping Mason off and picking him up from school, which the kid absolutely loved. During those car rides, Dad would tell him stories from his carpentry days and teach him basic life skills. Dad tried to contribute money from his pension for household expenses, but I shut that down immediately. "Keep that money for yourself, Dad. I've got everything covered." What he did instead was quietly open a college savings account for Mason without telling us. One day he mentioned it. "This is for my grandson's future. He's going to need that money for school someday." Kevin started coming around more often too, usually showing up on weekends to hang out with Mason. Kid loved having his Uncle Kevin around to play video games and crack jokes. When Mason asked Kevin why Grandma didn't visit anymore, Kevin's response was perfect. "Sometimes adults make bad choices, buddy. But the cool thing is you get to choose to be better than that when you grow up." About a month in, Dad and I were sitting on the porch with some beers on a quiet evening. Mason was asleep. Cool air setting the perfect tone for real talk. "You know," Dad said, "I should have left years ago. I kept hoping Helen would change, that having a grandchild would soften her up. But she just got worse." Hearing that made my chest tight. I finally understood how much he'd endured for decades. When I saw how they treated Mason and Jessica, I knew I couldn't stay quiet anymore. Filing those divorce papers felt like freedom. Those words hit deep. For the first time in forever, our relationship felt genuine, closer. We started talking more openly about work, the future. There was this comfort in those conversations that hadn't been there before. This positive shift affected our whole family. Jessica was happy having someone else to help with Mason, and Mason thrived under Grandpa's guidance. The divorce proceedings moved forward quickly since Dad had documented everything, and Mom couldn't afford a good lawyer without his income. But our peaceful new life wasn't going to stay peaceful for long. About 2 months after the retirement party disaster, the calls started coming in. First, it was Brianna blowing up my phone with increasingly desperate messages. "Tyler, I can't afford my apartment without the tuition money. I'm going to have to drop out." When I didn't respond, the messages got more pathetic. "Please, I'm sorry about everything. I was just trying to impress Connor. Can you help me with just this semester?" Then she started showing up at my work site. One Tuesday afternoon, she appeared at the auto shop I was working at, crying and begging in front of my coworkers. I had to step outside with her just to avoid the scene. "I messed up, okay, but I can't afford school without your help. You can't just abandon me." I looked her straight in the eye and told her the truth. "You made your choice when you decided my family wasn't good enough for your precious party. Figure it out yourself." But Brianna wasn't the only one spiraling. Through Dad's divorce lawyer, we found out Mom was having a complete meltdown. Turns out, without Dad's income and my financial support, she couldn't afford the house payments. The retirement party had cost her almost $2,800, money she didn't actually have. She'd been calling relatives asking for loans, claiming Dad had stolen all their furniture and abandoned her. Most people knew the real story by then and weren't buying her victim act. Her sister Linda straight up told her she'd brought it on herself. Then Mom started showing up places. First at Mason's school trying to see him during pickup. The school called me because she wasn't on the approved list and was causing a scene when they wouldn't let her take him. Had to have a conversation with the principal about keeping her away from my son. Next, she showed up at Jessica's work, cornering her in the parking lot and demanding to know why we were poisoning Mason against his grandmother. Jessica handled it like a boss, told her if she didn't leave immediately she'd call security. The most pathetic incident happened on a Saturday morning, about 3 months after everything went down. I'm in the garage working on my truck when I hear this commotion outside. Look out to see Mom and Brianna standing in my driveway, both looking like absolute disasters. Mom had clearly been crying for hours. Brianna looked like she hadn't slept in days, probably pulling all-nighters trying to keep up with school while working part-time. I walked out and asked them what they wanted. "We need to talk," Mom said, her voice shaky. "This has gone on long enough." That's when the real begging started. Mom got down on her knees right there in my driveway, grabbing at my work boots like some kind of movie scene. "Please, Tyler, I was wrong. I'm losing the house. The bank is foreclosing next month. I don't have anywhere to go." Brianna jumped in with her sob story. "I had to drop out of school. I'm working at a gas station now. My friends won't even talk to me because they think I'm a terrible person." Standing there looking down at these two women who'd been so arrogant just a few months ago. I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no pity, just emptiness. "You made your choices," I told them. "When you decided my family wasn't good enough for your party, you decided we weren't good enough for your problems either." Mom started wailing about how she'd raised me, how family should stick together, how she was sorry for everything. Brianna was crying about how she'd learned her lesson and would never treat Mason and Jessica badly again. But here's the thing, it was all about them, their problems, their needs, their regrets. Not once did either of them mention how Mason felt when his grandmother destroyed his handmade card. Not once did they acknowledge how they'd hurt Jessica. It was still all about what they wanted. Dad came out of the house at that point, took one look at the scene and said firmly, "Get off this property now." "Robert, please," Mom begged. "I'll do anything. I'll go to counseling. I'll change. The house is so empty without you." 30 years too late, he replied. "The divorce will be final next month. You're not my problem anymore." They left that day, but it wasn't over. Over the next few weeks, we heard through relatives that Mom had to move in with her sister Eleanor, sleeping on a couch because she couldn't afford rent anywhere. Brianna ended up moving back home with Mom, two bitter women stuck together in a tiny apartment. Kevin's take on their living situation was brutal. So now Helen and Brianna are roommates. That's not a living arrangement, that's a punishment. Two narcissists sharing one bathroom, that's basically psychological warfare. The last update I got was from Aunt Eleanor herself, who called to tell me Mom was asking family members to convince me to forgive and forget. Linda wanted me to know she'd told Mom that bridges burned that badly don't get rebuilt. "You did the right thing, Tyler," she said. "Some people need to lose everything before they understand what they had." 6 months later, Mason asked me one evening while we were playing video games, "Dad, why doesn't Grandma visit anymore?" I looked at my son, this happy, confident kid who was thriving with Grandpa Robert's attention and love, and gave him the simplest answer I could. "Sometimes people make choices that hurt others, buddy. When that happens, we have to protect ourselves." He nodded like that made perfect sense and went back to his game. That's when I knew I'd made the right decision. My real family, Jessica, Mason, and Dad, were stronger and happier without the toxic drama. Sometimes cutting people out isn't about punishment, it's about protection. Mom and Brianna learned the hard way that family isn't just a title you get to abuse. It's something you earn through love, respect, and putting each other first. They failed that test spectacularly, and now they're living with the consequences. As for me, I sleep better at night knowing my son will grow up understanding that he deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, and that his father will always have his back.